What a great fold by Jake Cody. That's what you guys are about to be saying after you watch this video.
We're going to be watching the final table of EPT London, and we'll just see a lot of non-standard play here.
Crown another champion on the European Poker Tour. Blinds 20,000, 40,000 with a 5,000 ante. Kevin Killeen first to speak, and he's got kings under the gun. Raise coming. He makes it 85,000. Action. Folded around to Jake Cody. And he's got ace-queen.
Oh boy, this could get uglier for Jake Cody than Willem Dafoe in drag.
No re-raise from Jake, just a call on the button.
I do like the just call with how deep they are.
Koren also has a queen. Queen Jack in the big blind.
Getting pretty good pre-flop pot odds, but his hand is pretty much in jail.
He calls as well. We go three-way to the flop. Killeen, roughly a 2-to-1 favorite. Well, that's a gut shot for Koren. Killeen's king still way out in front.
Yeah, look at that. Things not so bad for Queen Jack all of a sudden, though.
No c-bet from Killeen. He's checked the action to Jake.
I'm fine with the no c-bet, believe it or not. The only problem is that there are lots of bad turn cards.
So Jake takes over the betting lead, 160,000.
He must have heard me calling him dad face most of the tournament. Today he's dressed like Sandy from the end of Grease. Sure, I could have said Danny, but I went with Sandy.
Looks like Koren's calling with his gut shot.
Kevin's hand obviously way too strong to fold, but he can't really like this action.
He calls as well, so we're still three-way as we go to the turn.
Really surprising check by Killeen here on the flop with two kings. This is a pretty good flop for two kings. You normally won't see this.
I like the check, just like Joe Stapleton likes the check, although he doesn't fully explain why he likes the check. So I'm going to explain why I like the check.
This is great.
It's great. This is why we're here. So I like two things a lot about the check. One, he's underrepresenting his hand now, which can let him win a much bigger pot against marginal hands later on. I like that a lot. He's also playing pot control. Despite the board being like medium cards and he raised under the gun, an 8 is definitely part of both of his opponent's ranges here. Killeen, I'm talking about. So pot control is very important here. You don't want to get 50 blinds in on a paired board with an overpair, especially when the only thing you're really going to get it in with is a combo draw that you have beat, and that's really not so great for you anyway.
Yeah, you just don't want to play a huge pot here with the board being what it is. It's a weird thing because Cody bets, and I like Cody's bet here because he's just going to take it down a lot, I think, with this bet. When Koren calls, it's got to be sort of scary for the other two players. But Killeen has to call because it's just too good, as Stapleton says. It's just way too strong to fold. And a lot of the time, he's beating both players, as we see. Because a lot of time, Jake doesn't have anything, and Koren doesn't have an 8. As long as Koren doesn't have an 8, usually kings are in great shape.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, Killeen can't fold. Cody was clearly just trying to steal here. He was maybe expecting one call, hoping for 0, and I think once this happens, he's just ready to shut it down.
Yeah, I think everyone's surprised by the action ultimately. Koren's surprised that Killeen calls. Killeen's a little surprised that there's a bet and a call ahead of him. No one really loves their spot anymore. They're just going to hope for help on the turn.
There might be help on the river.
On the rail, Liv Beret, Olashemian, and Olashemian's 2 guns.
It's a 6, which doesn't change anything. Koren checks.
Given the flop action, this could very well check around.
Killeen checks again. Yeah, no second bet from Jake. He checks behind.
Do you think that's the real Iron Man?
Queen on the river. That's top pair for Koren and Cody. But Killeen's overpair is still good.
Oh man, worst river ever for those two. Not even a great river for Killeen, actually, even though he's still winning.
He's counting out the value bet. 380,000 into a pot of nearly 800,000. So what's Jake gonna do here?
Even though we know Jake has the worst hand, folding here would actually be pretty close to being a bad fold in the long run. He might actually be winning here more often than he's losing. He's also got Artur to worry about behind him. Even still, a fold here would be incredible.
He does fold!
Wow. Again, wow.
Cannot Koren get away from his queen? No, he pays off Kevin Killeen.
Oh man, that's gonna be rough watching this back, seeing Jake fold a much better hand and then calling with his. Hail to thee, Jake Cody.
Killeen chips up to the delight of his rail. And what a read by Jake Cody.
So the first thing I want to bring up here is Stapleton saying that Cody is going to win more in the long run by calling here than he is going to lose. And I'm not quite sure I agree with that. This is something we go into depth in the podcast in. But we can break it down a little bit for you here as well. How about that, Jonathan?
Let's do that, Grant.
So the line that Killeen takes throughout this hand just looks like this bet can be nothing but a value bet. It's just so hard for him to be bluffing with any of his range. And that alone is enough to make you think, okay, so what's his value range? And what hands does that include? And I don't really think it includes many tens or hands like that Jake Cody's beating.
Yeah, the only hands we could come up with, and we really spent serious time on this in the podcast, that might be value bet type hands here are 2 jacks, maybe queen jack, and once in a while ace 10. Those are some other 10s. But those are really not a big part of his range, and we think most of the time he's going to check and try and bluff catch against Jake Cody, as Koren's doing, by the way, from the big blind. I think Koren checks in the big blind on the river, assuming Killeen's going to check, hoping Cody bets his missed flush draw so Koren can call, Killeen folds, and Koren gets to win with this queen jack. But that's not what happens at all, of course. I just can't, we really could think of very few hands that weren't better than ace queen, even though that seems on the face of it hard to believe.
Just the way Killeen played it was so non-standard throughout that it's hard to put him on really any hand.
Yeah.
It's very, I mean, he doesn't have king queen here. He's not going to continue on the flop with king queen. If he had king queen of hearts, he would have bet the flop most likely rather than check calling the flop.
Most of the time.
So it really just looks like a really value-y bet here. And Cody comes to that conclusion. Of course, he has the benefit of having a player behind him, which makes the fold a bit easier.
Right. Joe Stapleton actually brings up the fact that, like, Koren calls with the worse hand than Cody had, but that's not really fair to say because, as you said, Koren's behind Cody. So Koren could still have a real hand here, but when Cody folds, Koren's all by himself, and it's a much easier call.
Right. And as far as Jake Cody's fold, it's super above the rim, and we've had plenty of time to think about this and finally come to a conclusion that it's probably a good fold over time based on the way Killeen played the hand. But Cody figures that out in the moment, and that's just really impressive.
It's super impressive.
I told you guys you would be saying what a great fold by Jake Cody. That was a great fold.
By who?
Jake Cody.
Oh, yeah, okay. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, check out our website, and subscribe.